Hello, hello. Welcome to the House of Cardboard. I'm Grant Linneberg. Glad to have you back to talk about war games. Or if this is your first episode, well, welcome aboard. This is episode 11, Cards on the Table. We'll be looking at two games this time, one relatively newer, one a little bit older. With the news that the Undaunted series is expanding not only to Stalingrad but also the Battle of Britain, it's time to take a look at the original game, Undaunted Normandy. But really? Undaunted goes to the air war? Wait to see what that's all about. And then, not all that old, but it's kind of disappeared and I think it deserves to be played, Hands in the Sea. I'd like to thank everybody who dropped by the website and voted in the polls. It's interesting to see that the majority of you don't really care one way or another about review copies. If you register at the website, which is free and doesn't require you giving me any incriminating info, there are other polls that also aren't open to the public. So drop by, answer a poll, and comment or join the forums if you like. News and what I've been playing. In the news, did anyone else happen to catch the Compass Live Town Hall episode 49 recently? It's a very, very strange live video. The owner took offense to someone asking about errata and then just wouldn't let it go the whole rest of the episode. He claimed that Compass was being held to a higher standard than GMT or MMP, and he just kept coming back to it despite the host trying to move things along. He pretty much let us know that what he thinks of some of his customer base. It's very, very weird. I'm basically bewildered as to why a widget seller would treat widget buyers with contempt and call those asking for a better widget insane. I won't list all the Compass announcements this episode, but one did catch my eye. World War II campaigns 1940, 41, and 42 is 3 games in one box. It's a repackaging of 3 GDW Series 120 games. I didn't get a chance to play those back in the day, but they always looked intriguing to me. They came in a smaller box back then, and they were smaller map, maximum 120 counters, and a 120-minute playtime. It seemed like a cool way to market some sort of introductory game. So might have to back the pre-order for this one from Compass. GMT's Weekend at the Warehouse is coming up this October, and I'm planning to be there. I'm going to make the long drive down from Calgary. So I'm interested. Who's going to be there? If you're going, drop by the website, let me know, or you can hit me up on email and tell me. I'm grant@pushingcardboard.com. I like to try to keep on top of what's happening, what's coming up as much as possible, but there's no way to cover it all here. So I pick and choose what interests me. But if you represent a publisher or a designer, or you want to make sure I'm on your mailing list, that email again is grant@pushingcardboard.com. What's on the table? Well, same old Commands and Colors stuff. Ancients, Napoleonics, Tricorn, and Samurai. I think the newest modules for both Commands and Colors, Ancients, and Napoleon are both close to final release, if not released already. Mark Benson has done some great work there and has been brought on by GMT to keep track of Vassal module updates for their games. He's a solid addition and a really sharp gamer, I can tell, as I've been playing with him to playtest the modules. These new modules, they're really worth checking out. Tons of automation, real upgrades over the previous ones, which in the case of Ancients was already a pretty good module as it was. In terms of ASL scenarios, my Russians finally won in The Art of Dying. It was Russian versus Italian, so a little bit off the beaten track and a fun scenario, especially if you like broken weapons. We're now setting up a new game with that partner, and my campaign game of Hell's Highway is ongoing still. Still day 3. I'm still feeling swamped, and now he just set up some more reinforcements to enter, so I'm going to feel even more swamped. Damn. Unhappy King Charles. Well, Wendell won on the final turn of the game. Final move of the final turn, really. It was an excellent game with an excellent opponent. I really recommend that game. I've got to talk about it at some point. Unhappy King Charles may just be the best CDG out there. Anyway, we've now started a new game, a new learning game of Absolute War, the Barbarossa scenario. My Soviets are the bug on the mighty German windshield, but we'll see how it goes. It's fun so far, but we're I don't know, 2 or 3 turns in, and he's just walloping me all over the place, as you expect the Germans to do in the opening moves of Barbarossa. Still playing Verdun on the Volga. There's still plenty of back and forth here. I've severely restricted where he can cross the Volga with reinforcements, but he still manages to get a few across. And I keep rolling the damn logistical pause, which means the Germans can move but not attack until they manage to end that same pause. So, still about a turn and a half, maybe 2 turns to go left there. It's still anyone's game. I thought I thought I sort of had it in the bag, and then, no, things turn around. Undaunted Normandy, scenario 8 is where we're at right now. Very interesting. Lots of toys again in this one, and a very asymmetric start. For the first time, it feels like we're losing units before the objectives can be gained. It's really fun. I have a feeling that this scenario is really probably rewards smarter force choice than I'm making. We can use anything in this scenario, and one has to remember that one doesn't need to use everything. Probably better to pick and choose. But anyway, lots of fun. Combat Commander Europe. The scenario is Commando School, and we're still there. I'm shooting him up pretty hard, although he just avoided a killer attack by playing 2 concealment cards at once. I'm not even sure if that's legal, but it made for a great play and saved him 2 squads. He ended up, instead of 2 broken squads, so one was unbroken and the other was unbroken but suppressed. So a good result for him there. In the last 100 yards, we're playing Mission 14, and my Yanks are still just rolling over him with impunity. This is a scenario where the defender can win with just a single remaining unit in the right place, so we continue, but I can't imagine it's much fun for my opponent Pete and the Germans. And finally, Thunder in the Ozarks. We finished Stonewall's Sword, and we really liked it, so we've moved on to the next game in the Blind Sword series. We're just playing a smaller intro scenario. A fair number of new things here for the system, particularly with cavalry. So far, so good, but we aren't yet going quite at the clip we had with Stonewall's Sword, so I'm sure that'll pick up as we get a better handle on these cavalry rules. New games in the collection. I had a few things come in over the transom. I got Operation Theseus and Crossing the Line, both from VUCA. As I'll explain later, haven't even had a chance to open those yet, as my office is sort of under assault. As well, from the GMT P500 recent shipments, I got Great Battles of Julius Caesar Deluxe Edition, the Musket and Pike Dual Pack, and the Stalingrad 42 Expansion Pack. I have opened those, managed to get some unboxing videos up of those, but haven't managed to play around with them or push any counters yet. But all of these games look good. I can't wait to get my office back so I can actually play with them a little bit. No books to review really this month, as all my reading has been fiction rather than any history or historical biography, which I normally have one of those on the go, but not this time. So no book review. Although I would like to give a plug out to a review of a book that I read a couple of years ago that I really enjoyed. It was Ron Chernow's biography of Ulysses S. Grant. He's the same guy who did the biography of Hamilton that went on to inspire the stage play and musical of the same name. But this book on U.S. Grant, I loved it. It was it really attacked a lot of the misconceptions about Grant, about about his drinking, about his efficacy as a president, and just gave me a real appreciation for the man who I think has got a rough ride from historians in previous generations. So it's probably just called Grant or something. I don't know what it's called, but it's by Ron Chernow, Chernow. Check it out if you get a chance. It's a great biography. Okay, let's talk about some war games. First up today, we're going to talk about Undaunted Normandy by David Thompson and Trevor Benjamin, published by Osprey Games. Wow, where to start with a game like this? Okay, to start with, and this is a weird place to start, but this is definitely not a game I thought I'd like. The packaging is a bit cartoony. It feels pitched at an introductory war gamer. And then, you open it up, it's yet another tactical game that follows a single division, something that I always dislike. I'm looking at you, Band of Brothers, Fighting Formations, games like that. I'd rather have a game that just divides the nationalities and doesn't just focus on a single division, but tackles the whole nationality at once. Anyway, the pieces are big. There doesn't seem to be any distinction between the weapons or the personnel of the two sides. So I have to admit, I was ready to not like this game from the get-go. I played a couple of the early scenarios with my son. The mechanics were more interesting than I thought, but the whole thing still felt a bit bland, so I shelved it for a while. And then a few months later, one of my PBM partners suggested it. I balked, saying I had played the first couple scenarios and found it boring. But then he clued me into the fact that the first few scenarios are boring, really just teaching tools. So we played scenario 1 just to test the vassal module, and then skipped on to scenarios 3 and 4, and now we're on scenario 8 and loving it. He was right. The later scenarios were way better. Look, this is a game that's clearly way over on the game side of the game versus simulation scale, but it's a damn fun game. And it's unlike anything I've ever played before, which makes it a little tricky to describe because there's really nothing familiar to compare it to. It comes in a smallish but deep box. There's molded inserts to hold everything once it's punched, no doubt designed to make the game more friendly to Euro gamers who are crossing over. The pieces include cards for each side, a variety of 3.5-inch square terrain tiles, and a bunch of circular counters rather than the classic squares. They're fairly big, maybe an inch and a quarter in diameter. These represent the riflemen, the scouts, the machine gunners, snipers, and mortar teams for each side. The initial game has 12 scenarios. There's also now a North Africa game, but it's slightly different, not interchangeable with this first Normandy game. And then there's a reinforcements expansion, which provides more content for both of the first two games. And then also in the pipeline, as I mentioned earlier, there's Undaunted Stalingrad and Undaunted Battle of Britain. So there's lots on the way. But back to the game. You choose a scenario, and there'll be an illustration of how to lay out the terrain tiles to make your map, and where each player's starting pieces go. And then there's a chart for how the cards are used. In this game, each player has a deck as well as a supply of possible new cards. The chart shows which cards each player puts in their initial deck and which cards make up each of their supplied piles. All the other cards are set aside for the current scenario. Gameplay is fairly simple, but it gets deeper the more you play. Each player draws 4 cards. The cards will either depict one of their men on the board, or there'll be a fog of war card, which is a bit of extra chaff to ruin your plans. Also, each card has an initiative rating from 1 to 9. Those fog of war cards, for example, are only a 1, but a rifleman is a 5 and a squad leader is a 7, etc. To begin a round, each player selects one of their cards as their initiative card for the round and plays it face down. They then reveal them simultaneously, and the player who played the higher initiative card gets or keeps the initiative for that turn and plays first. Both players' initiative cards are discarded, and the initiative player now gets to play their remaining hand of 3 cards. When those cards are done, the other player plays their 3 cards, and then both draw back up to 4, and it's on to the next round. On the initial map and terrain layout, some terrain tiles will also be indicated as having a victory point value. Victory conditions are often asymmetrical. One side might be challenged to capture a certain amount of victory locations before the other player, or one side may be trying for victory points while the other side tries to eliminate all of the opponent's riflemen. All of which is to say, this is a game of fire and movement. The early scenarios seem a little boring as there seems to be too much emphasis on fire, but later scenarios reward movement and deck management. Which leads us to look at a few of the units. The rifleman is the basic unit of the game. He can move, he can attack, and he can claim control of a tile. However, he can only move on to tiles that have been scouted by his faction already. Moving is simply the action of moving the counter to an adjacent tile. Firing is simple. You choose a target. Each target has a hit number. To the hit number, you add the defensive value of the terrain, which is printed right on the tile, so there's no charts to look up, and plus the range from your fire to the target. That'll give you a final 2-hit number. Then you roll a 10-sided die. If you roll equal to or higher than the final number, that's a hit. Also, a 10 always hits. If your man has been hit, one of his cards has to be removed from the game. First you check your hand, then your discard pile, and then your draw pile. If no card can be found, then the target's counter is removed from the board. It might get lucky and respawn later if some of the cards are still available for that unit in your supply. So, back to movement. So, the scout is a very important piece as well. They can also attack just like riflemen, but their movement is special scout movement, where they let you place a scouted marker on each tile they scout. Now, this scouted marker is needed before a rifleman can control the tile and flip the scouted marker to a control marker. The scout can scout 2 adjacent tiles, but the catch is that for every tile scouted, you have to add another Fog of War card to your discard pile, which will get into your deck very quickly. The scout has a couple other actions. They can recon, which allows them to discard a Fog of War card from their hand right out of the game, and then draw a new card. And they can conceal, which forces their opponent to take a Fog of War card from their supply and put it into their discard. It should be noted that each side generally has 2 or 3 squads labeled A, B, C, etc. So you'll have Rifleman A, Scout A, Rifleman B, and into this we add squad leaders for each squad. There are far fewer of these cards. The squad leaders have 2 actions. They can bolster, which means you can pick 2 cards from supply that are from their squad and put them into your discard, and they'll be in your hand shortly. Or they can inspire any one soldier from their squad that has already been played this turn, essentially letting that unit have a second action. And then there's a platoon sergeant in some scenarios, and he's much like the squad leader, but he can bolster 3 cards from any squads. He's not linked to squads A, B, or C. He can also command, which lets you draw 2 cards more to be played right away. There's also machine gunners who can attack just like a regular unit or suppress. Suppression attempts are just like regular combat, except the attacker gets to roll 4 dice instead of just 1 and to try and get that target number. If successful, the target doesn't lose a card, however. Its counter is just flipped over to its suppressed side, and it will take the play of its own card by its owner before it can be flipped back over to its normal active side. There's also mortars, which have the advantage of hitting everything in the target tile rather than just a single target. But they require a targeting marker placement before they can fire, so you have to draw their card once to place the target and then the next time to blast away. But the other good thing is they don't have to add in the range to the target number, so they hit a little more easily. And finally, there's snipers. They can move on to any unscouted tiles, and they roll 3 dice rather than 1 in a fire attack, so they're very deadly. Of course, there's less of their cards in the deck compared to the riflemen. And then, finally, there's the platoon guide in some scenarios. He can bolster, but just a single card. But more importantly, he can guide any unit, meaning he can move any counter on the board 1 space. So that's the mechanics. It's fairly simple. It's all painted with a broad brush. all the mortars are the same, all the MGs are the same, all the soldiers are the same. But within this, there's a tremendous amount of play. I'm finding there's more decisions to be made here than in comparable games like the Commands and Colors series. There's big choices to be made with any card that gives you a chance to bolster. Do you add more cards or do you do a different action? Is your deck getting too big? You aren't getting the cards you need often enough? And then with your scouts, how often can you afford to use them to get rid of those damn Fog of War cards rather than actually scouting? Worth noting also is that there's 5 cards for each rifleman, 3 cards for each scout, gunner, sniper, or mortar, and then only a single card for each leader. So it takes more hits to truly take out the rifleman, whereas the leader, the single man leader units, one hit and they're done basically. But the number of times I've had my rifleman A, for example, ready to control the final tile, only to be hit and lose his last card. Well, that's what the game is all about, right? So it's not trying to be heavy and realistic, whatever that really means. It's not trying to be ASL or even be upfront. Undaunted Normandy is its own thing. It's a strikingly original new game. There's a great vassal module for it. It takes a bit of agreement on how to do things for PBM play, as it clearly wasn't made with PBM in mind. But my partner and I have played a ton of PBM that way, and it works just fine. I'm looking forward to trying the North Africa game, as that introduces vehicles. And then the reinforcements expansion, I'll be getting into that as well. I should also note that reinforcements expansion, I think, also has either a solo bot or a solo mode. So for those of you who are big into solo games, there's a mode made right for you in this game. Yeah, Undaunted Normandy. I recommend it. Check it out from Osprey Games. Our second game today is Hands in the Sea by Daniel Berger, Knights Works Games. This game is only, it came out in 2016, so it's only 3 or 4 years older than Undaunted Normandy. It's a deck builder. It's a descendant of A Few Acres of Snow, but it's got a lot more bells and whistles than its famous godfather. It's set in the First Punic War. It's a land and naval battle between Rome and Carthage. I played this game a ton when it first arrived off Kickstarter in 2016 it was. There was also an update kit at one point, I think, that upgraded a few of the components, though I really haven't even opened my copy of the update kit, as all my play has been via Vassal PBM. I can say that the original mounted maps are very vivid but clear, easy to use. Same with the cards, all looked good. I think there might have been a problem with a few cards in that first run, but Nightworks sent out replacement cards for free, if I remember correctly. The box says it plays in about 2 hours. That sounds reasonable to me, but as I say, all my play has been PBM, so it's been disjointed. I have no idea how much the real time is, but 2 hours sounds... 90 to 120 minutes sounds right to me. The map is a point-to-point style map showing the southwest of Italy, northwest of Africa, as well as Sicily and Corsica, Sardinia. The seas are divided into 4 sea zones. It's as I say, a deck builder, a card game, and so there's 4 basic types of cards. There's location cards, which represent each land location in the game. If you currently control a location, you'll have the location card in your deck. There are empire cards for each player, as well as a few that can be bought by either player. These represent the troops, the leaders, of the weapons. There's a deck of strategy cards, which can also be purchased one at a time by either player to give your side an advantage. And then there's a deck of random event cards where one is drawn at the end of every turn just to mess with you and your plans. Each player starts with a small amount of their starting empire cards, as well as cards for any of the locations they control at the start of the game. The onboard locations are color-coded as to show who owns them: red for Rome, blue for Carthage, and gray for neutral. As they change ownership during the game, colored cubes are placed on them to denote who has what. The initial location cards and the empire cards for each player are shuffled together and then placed down to form each player's initial deck. and each player also starts with a small amount of money. The game is all about grabbing territories, but there's also victory points available for prestige, which is won by winning battles or card play. There's multiple triggers for the end of the game, different ways the game ends, so there's a few things to keep track of in the late stages. So, how does it work? Before starting, players each draw 5 cards from their own deck to form their initial hands. After the first turn and every other turn, there's a quick check before each turn for any completed battles from the previous turn. And then each turn, the Roman player goes first by completing 2 actions. The actions available are largely constrained by the cards in their hand, the locations they control, and their money available. The actions can be divided into a few broad categories. Expansive actions allow you to settle a neutral location or develop or fortify a location you already have. Generally, to settle a location, you'll need a location card that connects you to the desired spot, as well as a card with a transport symbol on it, whether it's wagons or ships. Some locations also have a colonist symbol on them, in which case you'll also have to play a card with a similar colonist symbol on it. Developing and fortifying locations work similarly. Strategy actions allow you to buy a strategy card, or discard a strategy card, or cycle all the available strategy cards. The strategy cards, they just give you little bonuses to your side, but they generally cost something to get. Card management actions, they are key early on. This is where you can draft new cards from either your Empire deck or the neutral Empire deck into your discard pile, which will end up in your hand eventually. There's a few other actions for hand management, as well as a little reserve of cards to artificially grow your hand, or to keep cards that you don't want to use right away, but you want to keep on hand in case you need them. There's financial actions that allow you to make extra money using trade or pillage, or you can simply get a bit for a discard of a card. And then there's aggressive actions, and these are the things that lead to combat. You can attack a location, reinforce an existing battle in a location, you can raid with your cavalry, or you can attack the enemy fleet. And this is the other real heart of the game. Land battles naturally have their own little subsystem and depend on a seemingly endless supply of good cards to play to win. They can last over multiple rounds. You win as the attacker by scoring at least 2 more combat points at the end of the round than the defender. The defender can win the same way, or simply by outlasting the attacker. The battles always end at a certain time. They can't be endless. Along with the cards for Roman legions, there's elephants, there's specialized types of infantry that attack in different ways, as well as many different types of leaders that add to the combat hit total or change the parameters of the battle. The battles in this game are often a nail-biting affair, as you sometimes have to rely on a good draw in the second round to get yourself out of a tough spot. You can't always have all the cards you need lined up before you start the battle, or before you're attacked. And then finally, there's a few other miscellaneous actions for things like building up your fleet, or moving your fleet, or withdrawing from a siege. After the Roman player has done their 2 actions, they draw from their deck to bring their hand back up to 5, and then the play passes to the Carthaginian player, who gets to do the same thing, play 2 actions and then draw back up. There's a special card called the campaign card that starts the game on the bottom of the Carthaginian player's deck, and it's replaced there every time their deck is reshuffled. When this card is drawn by the Carthaginian, the turn is over, and there's a special campaign phase to award victory points and move the game along. So when you get to a campaign phase, first there's an event card is drawn, and its effects are played out, and this can bring plague, push fleets to port for storms, generally events that cause mayhem and chaos and ruin your plans. Then each player gets paid 1 silver for every city they control, and 1 victory point for every neutral and enemy location they control. And then the strategy cards are cycled. There's always 3 strategy cards out available for purchase. And when cycled, the farthest card out is discarded, the other 2 move along the track, and a new card is added. And then finally, the campaign card is put back on the bottom of the Carthaginian player's deck. and the turn track markers moved along one space, and it's back to the Roman player to start the next turn. There's a few optional rules or variant rules, and the Kickstarter edition came with an alternate set of event cards that dialed down the strength of the random events, or maybe they ratcheted them up. I'm not sure. I don't think I played with the alternate event cards. This is a game soaked in theme, as you might guess. A lot of that comes from the variety of cards. There's a card that lets the Romans upgrade their navy using the Corvus. There's the previously mentioned war elephants for the Carthaginians, though their effectiveness is random and not to be relied upon. There's dictators, magistrates, there's cards for siege artillery, cards for spying and diplomacy and trade. So it's very much a card game. And like all deck builders, getting the right mix of cards in your deck is key. I've yet to hear of anyone coming up with a strategy that seems unbeatable for this game. There's none of this Halifax Hammer business or anything like that. And I've seen complaints about either side or both sides being favored. Some people think one side is favored. Some people think the other side is favored. So I'm guessing the truth lies somewhere in the middle. For what it's worth, I like this game very much. I prefer it to A Few Acres of Snow, really. There just seem to be so many more possibilities here, more routes to victory. It's definitely a game that I thought was going to enter that loose group of games that keep getting played long after their release. But I don't hear a lot about it anymore, so I'm hoping some of you will give it a try. I think you'll find it well worth your while. The Vassal module was designed by Judd Vance, and it's filled with automation, a really good module. But it hasn't been updated since 2017, so I'm not sure how well it still works with the much updated core Vassal engine. A quick glance, I loaded it up. It looks okay, but I have no idea. I haven't played with the module with the latest version of Vassal, so I'm not sure. It was a real cutting edge module in its time, and real good work by Judd. Okay. Now is when I usually have a little special shout out for someone, a bouquet, or, well, this, I gotta say, no bouquets this week, just a brickbat. While Mrs. Pushing Cardboard was away to the East Coast for a week, I planned to set the basement back up properly by replacing my old game shelves, which had run out of room, and getting some more. My son and I, we emptied the shelves into my office and any other available floor space. We hauled 3 old sets of shelves to the curb, and what wasn't taken away by neighbors, we hauled to the dump. We vacuumed and cleaned and got ready for the new shelves and even more shelves so that everything could be put in its proper place. And I decided on a simple system from IKEA that I've used many times over the years, many houses for many things. Held my records and my CDs for many years. So it's a good adjustable set of shelves called Ivar. I'm sure many of you know of them. Anyway, we went to pick up the new shelves, and they were out of stock. IKEA's most popular shelving line, but out of stock. The damn global supply chain issues bit me in the ass, I guess. So now my gaming table is covered in games, as is all the floor space in the other room in the basement that I use. I have nowhere to play other than on Vassal, and nowhere to make videos or push around counters. Can't look at the new games that have come in, so please, IKEA, bring me some Ivar. I'm dying here. Finally, parting shots. Oh boy. Yeah, I've taken some flack recently for producing unboxing videos for my YouTube channel. The criticisms were of 2 types. The first is that we don't need unboxing videos. We need more hard-hitting, edgy video reviews of games. In this context, I think edgy just means negative. This was a kind of a careless complaint, really, for the simple reason that it's not some zero-sum game where unboxing videos take space away from edgy reviews. There's plenty of space on YouTube servers for both, I reckon. I also question the need for more edgy or negative reviews. It's easy to be negative. It's easy to take pot shots, but it's also pretty lame unless it's done constructively. I spent most of my adult life working in the performing arts, and it's so much easier for a reviewer to write a bad review than a good one. Anyway, in terms of game reviewers, I imagine most reviewers tend to review games that they're already predisposed to like. It's not like we're being paid and have to review everything put in front of us. At most, we might get a review copy. I'm certainly not going to waste my time with a game that I'm sure I won't like. At best, I'll review a game that I don't quite like yet, but have hopes that either I'll understand it better or maybe a future edition it will improve. The other complaint is that unboxing videos are just shiny bits of our consumerist society and they attract too much attention. Presumably away from less shiny video content. I don't know. I have no idea what to say to that other than, so what, really? I'm just a guy doing a podcast and making a few videos. I'm not going to be able to change the world into a paradise where there's no consumerism overnight. I make the unboxing videos because some folks seem to like them, and it's a way to add content to my YouTube channel whenever I get a new game. It keeps the channel active between the bigger pieces that are more time intensive to produce. And if the unboxing is of a really new game, so some folks really want to see what it looks like, not just hear us talk about it. So the bottom line is I don't see who it hurts and why some dudes get their knickers in a twist over it. I'm going to keep making the unboxing videos as long as I have time. But what do you think about it? Drop by the website or vote in a poll or leave a comment or register and have a say in one of our forums. So hit me up at pushingcardboard.com or at cardboardpusher on Twitter. Thanks for listening. If you'd enjoyed it, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell your mom. Talk to you next time.